I'm Alicia.
And I'm Megan.
And welcome to Oddify, episode 3. We did it, episode 3.
We've come so far.
So far, in so little time. 3
Yes.
episodes in a month.
It's exciting.
Over a month now, I think. Who knows? Time is just
An
theory.
illusion.
So, Megan, what are we doing this week?
We are talking about unexplainable entities or creepy creatures, bizarre animals, whatever
Bizarre
you want to
beasts.
call them. Bizarre beasts. Sorry.
Exciting. So, part of this episode, kind of making it more special, is that we don't know what the other person chose. And
That is true.
We kind of didn't know what the curse is. We talked about it a little bit. Like, you knew I was doing Macbeth, and I didn't know you did the Hope Diamond until we were about to record. So this one's kind of interesting. So what we did was Megan had a map she found of the U.S., and it showed each state with the, I don't know, like, cryptoid creature well known in that area. So we each chose a state. Didn't tell each other which state, but we made sure it wasn't the same one.
I'm really hoping it's not, because I think we both changed.
Yeah.
After we told each other the state, I think we both changed and didn't say anything. So
if it is the same state, then we'll just have to change the name of the podcast, and we'll just have see like what information we each found and accumulate it, and then we have like a specific podcast. So
there you go. Sounds like a plan to me. I don't think we did the same ones, though. I'm pretty sure we didn't.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I guess we'll find out, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going first this time, so
Okay.
if things start sounding weird, like, well, I'm going to say the state name pretty early, like in the first part here, so if it's the same, then just freak out and let me know.
I was gonna say, I'll let you know, trust me.
Okay, so we'll get started and hope we didn't both do the same. Today, I want to take us east. Is your state east?
No, I'm very north, so we're good.
Oh, okay.
We're good.
To West Virginia.
Ooh.
In the small town of Point Pleasant. Now, if you're a super weirdo like me, you already know where this is headed, but we're going to ease into it sort of slowly. It's a chilly November day, which I don't have proof of, but it sounds spookier that way. I actually tried to look up the weather for that day, but
Oh my gosh. I love it.
the event I'm about to get into is so popularized that it just kept giving me information about the event. And I was like, no, I want to know if it was cold.
I want to know what the weather was like.
The year is 1966, so the Beatles just released Revolver, which is my favorite album. And miniskirts are all the rage, and the Vietnam War is happening. So kind of a crazy time. 2 couples, Linda and Roger Scarberry, and Steve and Mary Millette, decide to joyride around at midnight in Roger's Chevy. They all agreed to head up to the TNT area, which was the nickname locals gave to the former West Virginia Ordnance Works, which stored and produced ammunition during World War II.
Ooh.
Yeah, and this place is horribly polluted. There's chemicals leaking out. The water in the area was actually tested and contained levels of TNT.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's not a safe place.
No.
No. But then they experienced something that would forever change their lives. I actually have Linda's police report, the actual police report.
Okay, that's freaking cool.
Yeah, I had all of them actually. Roger, Steve's, and Mary's as well. But Linda's seemed to be the most detailed, and also it's the same thing repeated by 3 different people, so.
Alrighty.
Yes, so here is her report. I'm just going to read what I think are the most detailed parts. This is what they experienced. We were riding through the TNT area on a side road by the old powerhouse building around 12 on Tuesday night, November 15th, when we came over this small rise in the road. All at once, Steve yelled for us to look at that thing in the road. I looked up and saw it go around the corner at the old powerhouse. It didn't run, but wobbled like it couldn't keep its balance. Its wings were spread just a little. We sat there a few seconds, then Roger took off. I kept yelling for him to hurry. We didn't even stop for the curves. We got out on Route 62 and was coming down the road, and that thing was sitting on the second hill when you come into the first bag curves. As soon as our lights hit it, it was gone. It spread its wings a little and went straight up into the air. When we got to the armory, it was flying over our car. We were going between 100 and 105 miles per hour down that straight stretch, and that thing was just gliding back and forth over the back end of the car. As we got there in front of the lights by the resort, it dived at our car and went away. I could hear the wings flapping as if to get more speed as it went up. We were all terrified and kept yelling at Roger to go faster. After the police came, we went back up the road in our car with Gary and the police about half a mile behind us. I saw it then in a pasture field with its wings out a little, walking towards the car when it went up in the air and came at the car. As Gary's car lights came over the rise in the road and the light shined on it, it disappeared. We went up and down the road looking for it, but didn't see it anymore. We finally found Millard Halstead and got with him and went to the powerhouse building. A shadow went across the building over on the hill across from us. Mary and I saw the red eyes and then told Millard. He shined the lights right on them without being told where they were. We saw dust coming from the ground or somewhere as Millard moved the spotlight around. And then here later on is her description. To me, it just looks like a man with wings. It was a dirty gray color. It has a body-shaped form with wings on its back that come around it. It has muscular legs like a man and fiery red eyes that glow when the lights hit it. There was no glowing about it until the lights hit. I couldn't see its head or arms. I don't know if the eyes are even in a head. When we came down the straight stretch by the armory, it didn't even seem like it had any trouble keeping up with us. It must have had very powerful wings. She also said it seemed to be afraid of lights, but she read in the paper that it had been seen in the day in town. She said, "We'll never forget this thing. I am afraid to sleep at night, so I lay awake sometimes crying with fear. When I do sleep or go to bed, the lights burn all night. Every little noise scares me to death. I can stand in a crowd and hear people talking about us and laughing. People have said we were probably liquored up, but we were not. I know I'll never forget it. I don't think anyone can who has seen it." So, yeah, that was the real police report. So it's like...
I've never read the real police reports for this creature. I've only ever seen, like, YouTube videos, like, documenting what happened and stuff like that. But it's so interesting. It's so cool to hear, like, what she actually saw or what they actually saw.
Yeah, I don't think I would have actually done this topic if I hadn't found that report, because it kind of was like, oh my god, this is like actual piece of it.
That's really cool. You need to like keep that printed out and just keep it for funsies.
I'm definitely gonna print out a better copy. It's all highlighted and Nova chewed on it.
Oh no.
Nova's my kitten, for people who don't know.
Cutest little kitten ever.
She's also a monster.
Evil little demon.
During the next few months, this creature continued to be spotted. The following week's newspapers were full of witnesses and claims of seeing the Mason bird monster. All reports described something similar to what the couples had seen, a giant man-sized bird with glowing red eyes that reflected light. So there were even reports of dogs going missing, which is sad, and strange sounds being attributed to the mysterious Birdman, who began to be called the Mothman. You got it.
I was right.
You knew I would do it.
I did.
So, this part's really sad. So sorry to suddenly just jump into the tragedy right away.
Goddamn,
but
Alicia.
The sightings of Mothman didn't seem to come to an end in Point Pleasant until tragedy struck. The main street in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, led straight onto the Silver Bridge that went across the Ohio River to Gallipolis, Ohio? I'm not sure. Never been there. At 5:05 p.m. on December 15th, 1967, exactly 13 months after the first Mothman sightings, the bridge, full of cars, many of them Christmas shoppers, collapsed. And this is a quote here from Charlene Wood, who was on the bridge. She said, "It was like someone had lined up dominoes. I could see car lights flashing as they were tumbling into the water. The car in front of me went in. Then there was silence."
That's so eerie.
Yeah,
I can only imagine.
This is not going to help anyone who is already scared of bridges.
Yeah, no, thanks.
But Charlene Wood was pregnant at the time, and she drove home that way from her job at the hair salon. She was moving at 15 miles per hour when she approached the bridge, which was filled with truckers, commuters, and Christmas shoppers. As she drove over it, she felt it begin to shake and put her car in reverse. She was able to move back enough before the bridge stalled her car, like the rocking of it actually stalled her car.
Oh, wow.
And she ended up being 4 feet away from the precipice when, within 60 seconds, Silver Bridge rocked and collapsed into the river.
Oh my gosh. I got goosebumps again, Alicia. I'm getting shivers.
This part really upset me. Howard Boggs was a passenger in a car with his 17-month-old child and his 18-year-old wife, Marjorie, who was driving. Aww. Their car was heaved into the river by the collapsing bridge, and when Howard was pulled to safety by a rescue boat, he told the crew on board, "I just hope to God Marjorie and the kid got out okay." Their bodies were found in the car 6 weeks later.
Oh.
State Trooper Rudy Odell, who was 31, may have been the first officer to respond to the disaster. Before the bridge collapsed, it shook violently, turning the deck over and sending dozens of cars and their passengers into the water. He said, "I could hear them hollering for help. I didn't know how many there were at that time. There was absolutely nothing I could do. It was a long way out into the water." 31 vehicles went into the Ohio River that day, sending 64 people into its 44-degree waters. So yeah, 44 degrees is freezing. Like, I'm not sure if I'm remembering correctly, but I think the water when the Titanic sank was about 44 degrees.
Oh my goodness.
I'm gonna be wrong on that. But anyways, the point is it's fucking cold. Of the 64 who went in, 46 died, and the collapse remains the deadliest bridge disaster in United States history. President Lyndon Johnson released a statement saying all Americans were shocked by the cruel tragedy and loss of life and assembled the task force on bridge safety to mount an investigation. Forensic analysis were able to trace the problem to a small stress crack around 3 millimeters deep inside the bearing loop of I-bar 330. Not sure what that is, but apparently it was just the smallest thing that caused this huge disaster.
Oh, jeez.
Silver Bridge's legacy is especially pronounced in being the impetus for national bridge inspection standards, which are still in use today. These guidelines require all public bridges containing 20-foot plus spans to be examined every 2 years. And if they're determined to be higher risk, then they have to be examined more frequently, sometimes even monthly or more, until they can be repaired. And other bridges in the wake of the collapse were examined and retrofitted with better parts. And its sister bridge, which was in St. Mary, West Virginia, was decommissioned shortly after in 1971. You're asking yourself probably, what does that have to do with Mothman?
I was asking myself that, actually. I was like, how does he correlate?
The sightings of Mothman happened for months in Point Pleasant leading up to this disaster. This led many people to believe that Mothman was somehow related to the Silver Bridge collapse. So it wasn't just the Scarberrys and the Millettes who had seen Mothman in 1966. There were multiple people who claimed they heard strange noises, they saw him in the same area, in the TNT area, and also in different points around Point Pleasant. To follow up on this, there are actually numerous sightings of Mothman that seem to line up with other terrible and deadly events. Following the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001, rumors emerged that witnesses reported seeing a large crane-like figure in the vicinity of the towers 5 days prior to the attack. And when this happened, it had been 31 years since any such sighting of Mothman was seen in North America. On the day of the horrific attack, he was also reported to have appeared again, some claiming they could see his face through the clouds of smoke and debris. Have you ever seen those pictures?
I've seen pictures of the 9/11 attacks, yes.
Have you seen the one where it's a cloud and it looks like an evil face? I've seen it like posted around on Facebook like every time September 11th happens. Well, people think that was Mothman.
Oh, okay.
Another sighting of... Yeah, so there's a lot of debate, not only if he really exists, but if he does, is he an omen of things to come or the cause of these tragic events?
Right.
Because at rush hour on August 1st, 2007, a bridge on Interstate 35 in Minneapolis gave way at its center. 13 people died and nearly 145 were injured in its fall. And reports started trickling in that a Mothman-like figure started appearing near the bridge about a month prior to its collapse. Now, skeptics dismissed this creature as a large heron or crane, but some Mothman believers began to theorize that he could possibly be a paranormal entity rather than a cryptid. So, not a creature, but instead like some sort of demonic entity that, either shows up to warn of these things happening, like he's like a warning sign, or he is actually causing these things to happen. There's way more sightings, but not all of them. They didn't have a lot to back them up, or they weren't followed by tragic events. Like he was spotted, I think, in Chicago in 2017. There were many reports of seeing a Mothman-like creature, but as far as I'm aware, being near Chicago, nothing crazy happened in 2017.
Right.
But whether it was Mothman or mass hysteria, something was definitely happening in Point Pleasant. And on November 19th, 1967, a month before the Silver Bridge collapsed, Mary Hyre, who I will be talking about in just a minute, a little more, contacted author John Keel, who wrote the Mothman Prophecies book, which the movie The Mothman Prophecies is based off of. She contacted him to tell him of a strange dream she had. Now, this was, like I said, 1 month before the bridge collapsed. She said, "I had a terrible nightmare. There were a lot of people drowning in the river, and Christmas packages were floating everywhere in the water. It's like something awful is going to happen." So, yeah, and I got goosebumps.
I know, I keep getting chills.
Here's another thing. So, was this just one of those coincidences? A, coincidence. B, is this just one of those people have that sixth sense kind of thing where you get that gut feeling?
Yeah.
Or was the presence of Mothman causing these prophetic nightmares to happen?
Ugh. It's so weird because it could be any of those things, but then what causes dreams in the first place? It's such a weird thing to think about, but I don't know. I'd like to think that he was showing some type of prophecy.
I like to believe that Mothman is not the cause, but yet a warning sign.
Yeah.
If he exists. I mean, I have no idea. I've never seen Mothman.
Neither have I.
I don't want to, but...
Let's go hunt in Virginia for a Mothman.
Okay.
Like how you're just like, all right.
I'm down.
I don't want to see him, but let's go.
He'll chase us in our car.
Yes.
And the thing about Mothman is that he's not as scary as he sounds, because he's not a moth. Like, that would be fucking terrifying. Like a giant, like, powdery moth guy.
Oh, God.
He's just, like, kind of a bird man. So it's like, I don't know. I'd be a lot more scared of him if he was actually a moth.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of bugs.
No, I don't mind moths, but like a big one, no thanks.
Oh, yeah. Which reminds me, I saw one that was like 4 inches by 5 inches big.
Holy shit.
It was on the window at my workplace. And I was going to say, I think I saw Mothman.
When I worked at...
Big old moth.
Name of workplace I'm not going to tell the public.
I know what you're talking about.
We were outside doing work, and there was a dead, is it a Luna moth or a lunar moth? The big green ones.
The really big ones.
And it was fucking disgusting because it had been crushed, and there was like billions of eggs oozing out of it. So yeah, that's what I think of when I think of Mothman.
Nasty.
I'm going to move a little bit away from Mothman. Because between 1966 and 1967, which was the height of the sightings, unknown individuals were also seen in the area. And they are thought to have been men in black.
What?
Yep. So
I know where this is going.
I hope you do. I
know Men in Black, so I'm going to guess I know where this is going. Continue. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We'll see if... I'm not sure, but... So, like I said, Mary Hyre, who I mentioned, who had the quote and had that nightmare, she was a reporter for the Athens Messenger, and like I said, she helped John Keel with his investigation, so she was first on the spot interviewing these people, and she was working late at her office opposite of the county courthouse in January of 1967. And an unknown man walked in the door. She said that at one point she answered the telephone and noticed the man pick up a ballpoint pen from her desk. He looked at it in amazement as though he'd never seen one before, and then grabbed it, laughed really loudly, and ran out of the building.
What the hell?
This is crazy guy.
Oh my gosh. What the fuck?
So this is, like, you always, when you hear these stories about Men in Black, they're either, like, really scary or just, like, they don't know how to human.
So
and
they're
it's
like,
just,
what?
like, yeah, and it's just, like, hilarious. But I love how if this is true, this one Men in Black guy just, like, thinks pens are hilarious.
That's amazing.
And then he ran away, so he was just like, okay.
This is mine now.
Well, she then saw the same man from January on the streets of Point Pleasant a few months later, and he appeared alarmed when he saw her approaching and ran towards a large black car that suddenly came driving around the corner. He climbed in, and then the vehicle took off.
Did he take the ball? I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. Did he take the ballpoint pen with him when he ran the first time?
It didn't say it. I hope he did, though.
I hope he did, and then I hope the reason he got so scared was like, she's here to take her pen back, and then he ran away.
He's like, oh shit, that's the lady whose pen I stole.
I gotta get out of here.
Jeff, get the Cadillac.
That's awesome. Okay,
so
continue.
3 days after she saw this man again, and I'm sorry, this was in May, so not a few months later. It's like 5 months later. So this was 11 o'clock p.m. She was coming home from a civic meeting, and just as she was on her porch opening her door, a black car stopped outside her house, and a man got out. He snapped a picture with a blinding bright flash. Did I say that right? Blinding bright flash. And drove off while she was briefly disoriented.
That's so creepy.
Yeah. And then in the afternoon of December 22nd, this was after the bridge collapse, two men walked into her office. They were both short and wore black overcoats, and they were not interested in the bridge disaster as everyone was at that time. They wanted to know about the UFO reports in the area. And yeah, so she handed them a large file folder of related press clippings, but they didn't care. They were just like, what's this weird paper? And then they asked her what she would do if someone ordered her to stop writing about UFOs. Because I guess she had also, besides publishing, stuff on Mothman, she also published about the UFO sightings in the area. And she was basically like, I'd just continue
I would
writing about
ignore
them.
those sons of bitches.
Yeah. And then they glanced at each other, and then she went back to her work, and when she looked up again, they were gone. That same afternoon, another strange man walked into her office. She's got a lot of weird guys coming into her office.
I can see that.
There's like no front desk situation here. They're just like, walk in, go wherever you want.
Right?
Well, so this guy says his name is Jack Brown. He was 5'7" with black piercing eyes, unruly black hair and long fingers. He wore an ill-fitting, cheap black suit with an oddly knotted tie, and claims to be a UFO researcher, and asked her again what she would do if someone asked her to stop writing her articles. And she asked if he was with the two men that she talked with earlier, and he said he was not. And he stammered a bit as he asked her about author John Keel and their UFO sightings together in the area. He wanted to know where John Keel was and wanted Mary to take him to the sighting location. And she told him that she couldn't just escort him around and that she was going home for the night, and told him to leave her office. And he also, so this same strange man visited the home of several Mothman witnesses in the area, including the Scarberrys and the Millettes, who, if you recall, were the couples who first witnessed Mothman in November 1966.
What the hell? That's so interesting.
Linda actually had one of these, she's the one whose police report I read. She actually had one of these men come up to her house. I guess she was still living at home, so I'm assuming they weren't married yet. But her father shook hands with one of the men, and her father said that he was awkward, like he didn't know how to shake hands.
That's so weird.
And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Hot Rod. Oh, no, it's not Hot Rod. I'm sorry. And Step Brothers. Have you seen Step Brothers?
Yes, I have.
Where they, try to hug. The two brothers try to hug at the end, and they, don't know what to do. That's what I imagine, but with a handshake.
Just I don't know what I'm doing.
Yes. It's, the worst, most awkward thing. But she said that these men would follow her around, and that they almost always drove black Cadillacs and had almost transparent skin, that you could see their veins through their skin.
That's so weird. Ugh.
Yeah, so I thought it was just a really strange coincidence that around the same time these Mothman sightings are happening, you're getting these Men in Black sightings, and apparently UFO sightings. This is all happening at the same time.
Right.
And so that's when you kind of get into, is this causation, or is it one thing? Is it some sort of mass hallucination effects? Or were these things just, is there some sort of paranormal, they say hotspot, where all this stuff is just, some kind of portal is open and all this stuff is just happening? Now, I don't entirely believe in all of that, but I don't know. And it seems to be a pretty good explanation for this many crazy things.
Right. Yeah, no. With that many things happening in one area, I can see why people would believe it.
Well, yeah, and it's not this isn't this happening in LA and it's this big widespread hysterical event. This is Point Pleasant, and I'm pretty sure, I think the population, I looked it up, and it's only 4,000 something now. So back in 1966, it was probably at least half that, if not less.
Right.
And
So it's not like a huge. Oh, that's so cool. I never knew about that second part, like with the Men in Black being seen there too.
I didn't either, and I want to just. I'm just so happy that I found that when I was just researching. I think I was reading about Mary Hire, and I had just seen something about Men in Black, and I was like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Whoa, hold the phones.
And then it's like they had interviewed the witnesses, and it's just like they didn't seem interested. Like they didn't mention Mothman, so that's another thing. Like, is this not a paranormal entity or a cryptoid? Is this an alien?
Right,
an extraterrestrial?
Oh my god, that's so cool.
That was what I had on Mothman. You know, there's so many different layers you can go through, and still to this day, Mothman is like, I'm sure the people of Point Pleasant now like are just sick of it. Like, shut up about Mothman.
Don't they have a statue erected of Mothman?
They definitely do. They erected a statue, and they also have a Mothman festival every year.
Oh my god.
And a lot of the residents won't talk about it, but there are some very true believers that live in Point Pleasant, West Virginia to this day. So just if you ever see a giant Birdman, go away from that area, like far, far away.
Just leave the town. Just
something
go.
Terrible's probably going to happen. So I would just leave for like at least 2 months, and you should be good after that.
Just leave town and watch the news.
Yeah, and if you see this thing and something bad happens, it was Mothman.
I would say so. I agree with you on that. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of the stories that you were reading gave me chills, which doesn't happen very often. Like, I'm not someone who's easily scared with like stories, because I read creepy stories all the time, but when it's like true accounts or police reports and these people are like, I believe that this happened, and they explain and they show like what they saw, that gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, and the thing is too that when I was reading these for research, like I was like, oh, that's creepy or really sad, I gotta include that. And then when I was reading it out loud is when it really affected me.
Right.
And it's just like so this, even like, not to take away from this bridge collapse, was an insanely tragic event. Like I said, it's still the like most tragic like bridge disaster in U.S. history, which is insane considering it was in 1966 and bridges have been around forever.
Right.
And like these people, it's so sad because this was like almost Christmas, and these people they said that there were Christmas presents floating in the water because people were just, they were going home after Christmas shopping, and it's just terrible. And so many people lost their lives, and I just don't want it to seem like,
oh no, I get what you're saying though.
I don't want to take away from this tragedy by being like, it was Mothman, look at this creepy story. It's just a part of it.
It's a part of the history of the incident. Like,
yeah,
some
and
people
it's a real
believe
thing.
that it was Mothman.
Yeah, and people really honestly believe that this was related, and in some ways it feels like it really is. And just to kind of end this really sad and creepy tale and kind of funny tale with the Men in Black there, just end it with this still question of, is Mothman the cause of these events, or is he an omen of what is to come?
You know what I want?
What?
To be like a YouTuber right now and say, what do you think in the comments? Let us know if you think Mothman was related to these incidents, or if you think he caused them, or if he was an omen for them to happen. What do you think?
We can have discussions. People can comment on Facebook. I
want discussions. That'd be so cool to have people comment and see, like, what do they think? Do they agree with, I don't know. I don't know if we actually said what we believe, but I think it could be an omen of some sort.
For me, it's really hard, and I go back and forth because in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, there is proof that this is mass hysteria. Like, people fake, you hear one crazy story and then you're trying to see it yourself, and when you're trying to see something so hard, you will convince yourself it is there.
That is true. That is true.
But on the other hand, it's just like you have so many different people, and it's not just in Point Pleasant that this happened. There's been other incidents, and it's just, to me, I like to stay really safe in the middle and say I could
Yeah.
go either way with it. I'd like to believe that, like I said in the beginning, that he is actually just a sign, just some sort of like warning sign. And that would
Yeah.
make me feel better because then it's like, oh, there's Mothman, gotta go.
Right. It's not, oh, there's Mothman. What's he gonna do?
Yeah, is he gonna murder my family and my dog?
Oh no, not the dogs. Keep them out of this.
So yeah,
And the babies.
Oh, okay. The dogs and the babies are safe.
Thank God. Can't
That
handle
was
that.
that was the Mothman story, and if anyone's interested, I haven't had a chance to read it, but the book was like widely talked about, The Mothman Prophecies by John Keel. I'm trying to get a copy of it myself, and then also I recommend the movie The Mothman Prophecies. The first time I watched it, I was like, kind of like, what the hell did I just watch? But the second time I watched it, I was actually really intrigued by it, and it's really interesting because it's based on a lot of true, like, of course it's fictional and exaggerated, but they have some interesting story details in there, and it has a really kind of one of those endings that just stops and you're like, that's it. But
Wait,
I
what?
recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it yet.
That sounds awesome, and I have not seen it yet, so I'm gonna have to watch it.
Check it out.
And whenever you get that book and I get my books, we should read them and then swap. Because I was looking up the demonology one that you said about last time when you were talking about Macbeth.
Oh,
and I haven't found it yet, or like a copy that I want,
Yeah.
So I'm working on that.
I actually
But that's my plan.
I went to Barnes and Noble on Saturday, before we were hanging out with you guys, and I was actually looking for demonology, and they had some they had Dante's Inferno, which I almost bought, and it was like you couldn't really tell what book it was, and it had like little devils on it. It was really cool. So I don't know if this will help you, but just to kind of get things going, I have no idea what you're about to talk about, and I am so excited because I feel like for me it's like, duh, she's gonna do Mothman, because like the second I saw the map, and I was like, I don't know who any of these things are, but I know Mothman.
See, and I feel like the moment I say what I'm talking about, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I should have known that. Because there is one state, and it's very close to home for me, and for you, I guess. It's not too far away. But mine isn't really a creature that's been sighted and nobody knows what it is, and there's there have been circumstances that have happened around them. However, it's more of a folklore mythology kind of creature that shows up in a lot of First Nation folklore.
I think I know what you're doing.
So the creature that I decided to choose, and I state that it's pretty explainable. It's not really unexplainable entities like the title says, but I chose the Wendigo.
Oh, that's not where I thought we were going, but holy shit, because I fucking love Wendigo stories. Oh my god.
Okay. So
I just got goosebumps from that.
I'm excited because Wendigos are, I don't want to say Wendigos are my favorite creature because, I mean, that's just kind of weird. But, because, they're cannibals and shit. But Wendigos and the history around them and the folklore that comes with them has been very intriguing to me. So I was really excited to go ahead and just delve right into it and get to learn like the full history around them.
Honestly, like the Wendigo is probably one of the only not mythological, like I don't know what you would call it, folklore legend that actually scares the shit out of me.
Oh my goodness.
Just gonna cut that out of my audio.
Vinny's excited too. So I don't know if you remember, Alicia, but just as a side note, one of my favorite horror games is Until Dawn.
Oh yeah.
And that follows the premise of these people are up in a cabin in the northern forest, and it's winter, obviously, and there's Wendigos that are hunting them pretty much in the woods, and you kind of learn the history on why the Wendigos are there, how it happened, and it's really cool. And the way that they portray Wendigos is a lot more realistic to what the First Nation people described them as. Nowadays they're described with horns or with like man body and then just like the head of a deer or some sort, but that's not at all how they were actually originally depicted, or that's not how they actually are depicted or should be. That's
you said you played Witcher, right? Witcher 3?
I did for a little bit, yeah. I haven't gotten too far into it though.
I can't remember the name of it, the Lichen? I'm not sure.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
That's how I like to imagine Wendigos. Something like that. I want a tattoo of it, but I can't pronounce it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to read. I have a few things to read excerpts from as well that I found quotes from. But like I said, or as I was saying, for anyone who doesn't know, Wendigos are creatures or evil spirits which originate in the folklore and mythology of the First Nations, whom were based in eastern regions of Canada, as well as the Great Lakes and Great Plains regions of the USA. It was mainly and if I butcher this, I apologize, it was mainly the Algonquin-speaking peoples.
That's correct.
Oh, well, thank you.
There's a city in Illinois called Algonquin, so...
Ooh, well, I'm proud of myself then.
Good job.
And those, I know this one's pronounced Ojibwe people, the Saulteaux people, the Cree and the Naskapis and the Innu were some of the nations that were Algonquin speaking and who believed in Wendigos. Wendigos are said to be malevolent spirits that possess humans, and when they do so, they cause the human to resort to cannibalism or even feelings of unstable greed. They can even cause the person to commit murderous acts or have homicidal tendencies.
So Jeffrey Dahmer was a Wendigo?
He could have been possessed by one.
Oh my god.
I would say so. But with that, descriptions can sometimes vary, as I was saying before, as to what they look like. The most detailed and used description that I was able to find was given by a teacher or scholar from Ontario who was also of the Ojibwe people. And they said that they were described as gaunt and to the point of, and this is a quote, the Wendigo was gaunt to the point of emaciation?
I think either one.
Its desiccated skin pulled tightly over its bones, with its bones pushing out against its skin. Its complexion was the ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed back deep into its sockets. The Wendigo looked like a gaunt skeleton, recently disinterred from the grave.
I don't like that at all.
Yeah, no. What lips it had were tattered and bloody, unclean, and suffering from suppuration of the flesh. The Wendigo gave off a strange and eerie odor of decay and decomposition, of death and corruption. That was the description that teacher/scholar gave. Some say also that it had more of a yellowish skin. Again, some also say, which I thought this was really interesting because it's found in the northern forested regions where it gets cold, because a lot of the followings behind Wendigos was because of starvation. People would become so starved in the wintertime that they would become greedy and they would resort to cannibalism. And that's when their spirit was, or they were possessed by the Wendigo, is when they resorted to cannibalism. Because the Wendigo would cause them to do that. But they say that some of them said that some say that matted hair on their bodies makes them comparable to Bigfoots, even though they are completely skinny. They're not like big and full like a lot of depictions of Bigfoot can be. Mm-hmm. But another reason they're comparable to Bigfoot in a way, as to what some people say, and I'm not really fully sure on it, but I think it would be a good explanation, is that really... because... Sorry.
No, I was just saying that, like, really, like, that would be... I'm just thinking about it. Would make a lot of sense.
And because the Wendigo is an embodiment of greed and gluttony, whenever they feed, they're said to grow in size so that they can never be full. So, for this reason, they are forever hunting their next meal, and this also is the reason that they're forever like a skin and bone. But a lot of them are said to be about 15 foot tall because they just keep growing in size every time they eat, which is also comparable to Bigfoot. In a way, if they had matted fur or hair on their skin, it could cause them to look kind of like a very tall, big, hairy, human-esque type creature, which I thought was really interesting when I read that.
That's really creepy. Like, they keep getting taller too. Like, oh my god, I'm just imagining like this fucking thing in the forest, this
creeping along on its really long limbs and just... Ugh.
Chasing after your car. No.
Oh god. Which is even scarier because I'll get to it in a second here. But even though they no longer look completely human because of their skinniness and their long, nasty limbs, they are said not to lose their human qualities because at one point they were human. They were just resorted to overbearing greed and cannibalism. So they can still speak and use tools as humans would. They've been said or known to mimic other human voices as well, to speak with their victims or even taunt them or lure them. So it's even creepier when you come to think of the fact that it could mimic a human voice and like lure you in, making you think that somebody's in trouble or
oh god,
making you think that somebody's out in the woods.
My like fifth set of goosebumps tonight because that just reminded me that there was a story on No Sleep on Reddit.
Oh goodness.
This was probably a few years ago, like when I first got on Reddit, and it was this like long story. There were so many parts to it, but it was about Wendigos, and these people were in this cabin, and like it was mimicking their voices, and that's how it lures you. And this, oh my god.
It makes you think that somebody could be calling your name or taunting them or like asking you for help, and it's just, ugh. This is one creature that I would never want to run into.
No, yeah, I'd take Mothman over the Wendigo any day.
I agree. It also stated that humans who, like I said before, humans that resort to cannibalism or who are overpowered by greed can turn into Wendigos, which is kind of why they, like I said before, keep their voices. I don't know how I'm trying to figure out how to say this. I don't know if this is an actual excerpt from something or not, but I'm just going to say, in the Wendigo Wiki, if you look at the psychosis, it says that there was a report called if I butcher this, the Jesuit Relations, reported in 1661. It's in a different language, but it's translated. And I'm going to read this because I think it's really interesting. But it says, what caused us greater concern was the news that met us upon entering the lake, namely that the men deputed by our conductor for the purpose of summoning the nations to the North Sea and assigning them a rendezvous where they were to await our coming and met their death. Did I read that wrong?
It's a rendezvous.
Is it really? I've never seen rendezvous written.
Yeah, it's only know that because I took French, but yeah, it's rendezvous.
Rendezvous?
I was like, what the fuck word was that? And then I like spelled it out in my head, and I was like, oh, it's rendezvous. But you said it correctly if you were like doing it by pronunciation in English.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I'm crying. I can't stop laughing. I'm sorry.
It's not as bad as when we were getting the lemon meringue pie for you.
Meringue.
He's like, oh, there's the lemon meringue. And I was like, what? What in the world?
Oh my god. Okay. I gotta stop laughing. Fuck. And assigning them a rendezvous where they were to await our coming and met their death the previous winter in a very strange manner. Those poor men, according to the report given us, were seized with an ailment unknown to us, but not very unusual among the people we were seeking. They are afflicted with neither lunacy, hypochondria, nor frenzy, but have a combination of all these species of disease, which affects their imaginations and causes them a more than canine hunger. This makes them so ravenous for human flesh that they pounce upon women, children, or even upon men like veritable werewolves, and devour them ferociously, without being able to appease their glut or appetite, ever seeking fresh prey, and the more greedily, the more they eat. This ailment attacked our deputies, and as death is the sole remedy among those simple people for checking such acts of murder, they were slain in order to stay the course of their madness.
Oh.
And this is supposedly a report from the Jesuit Relations, which was in 1661.
Oh my god.
So, just kind of showing nobody really knows how far back the history or folklore of the Wendigo goes, but it goes back a very long way.
Yeah, and that's like, the Jesuits are like, that's like legit. That's, holy shit.
Very, very interesting. I never had read that before, but it's so interesting because it's in a different language, and I'm not sure what language it's in because I'm not smart when it comes to that kind of stuff. But
I would assume probably Latin, but
I would assume so too. It looks kind of like it. I see les and par nostre, so I'm assuming it's Latin. Anyway, it tells, like I said, a little summary. It tells of people pouncing on women and children, even men, because their hunger just became so much. And I did see, even though it says at the end that there's no cure for Wendigo possession, or what they didn't know was that at the time, they said the only cure was death, so the people had to be slain. Though I did see that in Cree traditions or Cree folklore, some people had treated Wendigo possession by having the person eat fatty animal meat or drink animal grease.
Oh.
And what I even saw that was also interesting, because some depictions say that the Wendigo is because it comes out mostly in the winter when people are starving, it said that sometimes showing that it's working is that the people who are drinking this animal grease or eating the fatty animal meat would puke up ice crystals or ice chunks.
Oh.
Which is...
That's not what I was expecting.
No, but it's... Like, that doesn't happen normally.
No, yeah. I mean, if someone started doing that, I'd definitely be like, yeah, there's something inside of you that's bad.
I mean, the human body isn't a freezer. So we don't have ice
almost
in
the
our...
opposite.
Literally. So I thought that was interesting, too. A more famous case was in 1878 when a trapper was with his family in the wilderness. And I was reading on where this happened. And I honestly don't remember. Oh, involves a Plains Cree trapper from Alberta. His name was Swift Runner. And he, in 1878, was with his family about 25 miles away from an emergency food supply at Hudson's Bay Company Post, which about 25 miles away is where his son died. And because they were starving, his son passed away. Ugh. And while they were out in the wilderness, after his son passed, this guy decided to... Hold on. This man, said to be possessed by a Wendigo, butchered his remaining family that was with him, so his 5 children and his wife, and then continued to eat them.
Oh.
Which he later confessed to this and was executed. He's believed to have been possessed by a Wendigo because that would be 6 people that he ate.
Oh my God.
Almost at once. It doesn't give a time frame as to how long he was out there that he ate these people. It just says that he butchered the 5 children, his wife, and then ate them. Which that's a lot of... I don't want to say food because people aren't food, but that's a lot of meat. That's a lot of eating for one person. So that's why he's said to have been possessed by a Wendigo.
God.
It also says that's because he was not terribly far from supplies. Like, it was 25 miles, but
if someone was like, you have to eat your friends and family or walk 25 miles, I would walk 25 miles.
Exactly. I feel like I would walk the 25 miles. It might take a long freaking time, but I definitely wouldn't just butcher my family and then eat them.
Yeah, there's some other options there that this guy didn't think about.
Also, he was a trapper.
Yeah.
So I feel like he was probably out there hunting or checking the traps or something of some sort. He was out in the wilderness.
You think he'd know enough about animals to be able to, you know,
hunt
find one to
down.
eat?
Yeah, you would think. So that just... There's a lot of kind of weird circumstances around that whole thing. That leads me to think that there was some sort of psychosis or possession of some sort coming over this man to cause him to do such a thing. Oh, I was going to say, kind of on the topic of hunters, with all creatures, we have to have hunters, right? One of the most famous Wendigo hunters was a name... I almost just said a name named Jack. A man named Jack Fiddler, who claimed to have killed 14 of the creatures in his lifetime.
That's a lot of them. I partially, thought you might be about to say Sam or Dean Winchester, and I was like, oh my God.
I mean, them too. I know that there was an episode with Wendigos.
Yes, I think there was just one, but...
It was probably just one. Those episodes are really long, I think. I don't know. I've only ever seen 1 or 2 of them. I've never actually watched Supernatural.
You're not missing much.
Not missing much. I'm glad I'm not missing much.
Yeah.
So this guy, Jack Fiddler, who claimed to have killed 14 of these creatures in his lifetime, was apparently a medicine man who was an OG Cree chief, or Augie Cree chief, medicine man, and he was known for his powers in defeating Wendigos. And this was in 1907, so this was a long time ago, but not as long ago as I thought it would have been.
Yeah. That's recent in history.
I would say it's more recent than anything else that I've read about here. But one source that I read said that he would help with assisted suicides almost for people who were possessed by the Wendigos. So anybody who came to him, from what my understanding of it is, anybody who came to him saying they were possessed by a Wendigo or who didn't know what was going on and he said they were possessed by a Wendigo, the only known cure was death, which was the main cure. So he would help kill them in a way. I don't know if there was a ritual that went along with it or if he just helped, murder them.
You just show up and you're like, I think I'm a Wendigo. And he's like, all right. And you just shoots him in the back of the head.
What? Did they have guns in 1907?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just dumb. Don't listen to me.
It's okay.
Oh, that's stupid. Duh. Of course they did. The fucking Civil War. Is it 1786?
Well, I think we're just confused because we got confused last time when I was talking about Macbeth, and we were like, did they have guns in Shakespeare times? And I don't think they did.
Well, I'm sitting here, a really big fan of Hamilton, and I'm like, did they have guns in 1907? And the fucking songs go 1789, and I'm like, yeah, they had guns.
Yeah, I think the Revolution might have been fought with some guns.
Maybe. I forget how old America is, even though it's not that old. Whatever. I'm going to keep reading because I'm just digging myself a hole of stupidity that I can't come out of.
Climb out.
Anyway, this goes to state that he was prosecuted by Canadian authorities after his brother and himself strangled a Cree woman to death when they were tried for the murder in 1907 for homicide. They actually pleaded guilty, but their defense being that the woman was a Wendigo who was about to transform, which is why they strangled her to death.
Right. Excuse.
It was a good excuse. I don't know how or if she actually was a Wendigo that was about to transform, but I thought that was just kind of, nowadays, a funny defense. I don't mean to discredit my own creature that I'm talking about, but if you imagine somebody today coming up to you and being like, the police are like, why did you strangle this woman? And you go, well, she was about to transform into a creature, like an evil creature that eats people. They would just laugh at you or send you to a loony bin.
Yeah, but you could get off with the insanity plea if you...
That is true. You could get off with the insanity plea.
Guys, if you ever murder anybody...
just tell the police you thought they were turning into a Wendigo, and you'll be good.
You'll be safe.
Actually, he wasn't good, though. I will say he did go to jail, and then he actually got out and committed suicide, and then his brother was left in jail. He received life in prison. However, he was pardoned, and then 3 days later he died in jail because they had never told him that he was pardoned yet.
Oh, God.
So he actually died in prison after that.
Oh.
Which is kind of sad. But...
yeah, I mean, technically you were free, but, 3 days, probably would have died anyways.
Right. And that's probably why they didn't tell him. If he was dying, I'm pretty sure he was probably not... If it was 3 days before he passed, he was probably sickly and wasn't able to leave anyways.
Yeah.
But he was never informed of his pardon before he passed. So that's kind of sad, I thought. All because his brother wanted his help killing Wendigos.
Man. Sam and Dean.
Oh my god. It's them. Along with these, there were allegedly a large number of sightings of Wendigos between the 1800s, the early 1800s, and through to the 1920s, where every time one was sighted, an unexpected death would occur in or around the town, called Roseau? Roseau? Roseau?
Rosso? I don't know.
I didn't say
like,
Roseau.
Is it like Wassa?
No.
Rasa?
I mean, it could be Rasa. I don't know. It's right on the border of Canada and Minnesota. So it's like right up there.
So it's hard to pronounce like every city.
Like every other city in Minnesota. Except for there's, the city that I live in. There's the exact same city in Minnesota.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the exact same town name. And I went, what?
Do I live
It's
there?
my home. I couldn't find anything on those deaths that were in Roseau from the 1800s to the 1920s. I looked everywhere I could, and I could not find anything. I even went to the Roseau Historical Society website, which was created in 1927. The historical museum was, and I was trying to find like any type of record of this, and I could not. So I'm not sure how credible that is. However, I would say that it was around the same time. So I would say there's probably a lot of sightings of Wendigos around that time in the woods, just because of the history-wise from what I've read so far. So I would say it's probably pretty accurate. But I also want to visit up there. It's only like 11 hours away from where I live, so we should go. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Another road trip. So first we're going to West Virginia to hunt Mothman, and then we're going to go get murdered by Wendigos.
In the forests of Roseau.
I'm down. I'm not doing much with my life anyways.
Right? Along with those encounters that were the most prominent or most famous ones that I could find, many hunters have claimed to have had encounters or have sightings of Wendigos in the northern woodlands of Minnesota. So I thought that was really interesting too. There's also been, if you look online, you can find a lot of hunter cameras that have caught pictures of creatures that are unexplainable that look similar to Wendigos.
I can't look at those right now.
However, one of them I was looking at, and I debunked it immediately because it was a deer. But its eye was really close to the camera, so it looked really big and black. But then you could see like the outline of its face, and then you could see its back and its butt in the background. And I was like, "That's a deer. That's not a Wendigo." Sorry,
maybe the guy's never seen a deer before.
Having a hunter camera in the woods, you probably don't see many deer at all.
I was gonna say that the hunter thing reminded me of a topic I want to cover.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of it, called Missing 411.
No, but I think I know where this is going.
It's about like not just hunters but hikers and just people in general in the woods just disappear for like sometimes like months to like years at a time.
And then they come back.
Yeah. Or they don't come back, but there's no trace of them at all. Like they just find like this dude took his shoes off and they search the entire place and they never find anything. Or they go back to that spot like months later and they find something else or the body.
Yes, I've heard about these. There was a story I read about a girl that went into the woods and then she came back like 10 years later.
God.
And just out of nowhere, like she walked in, there was, I think, a toy that she was holding. She dropped it when she walked in. And then she came back like 10 years later and had no recollection of what happened. She didn't realize she was gone for that long or something like that. Like,
yeah,
it's
happens.
just
it's like
really strange.
I think the like adults never it seems like they never show up, but I feel like the children always come back. And there's like, I read one and it was about this kid who disappeared, and it was like in the 30s. Like this kid would have gotten frostbite or like died from exposure, and he was perfectly fine. Like had no hint that he had been cold, and he didn't have a jacket, and he had been gone for like hours. So yeah, I think we need to cover that, but that could be relating to Wendigos.
It could be. I want to look into that. We need to cover that. Okay, write it down. That's a topic for next time.
I don't have a pen, but I'm gonna.
Okay, well, I have markers next to me. But what I was gonna say also, which correlates into this, is that many people have gone missing in the woods of northern Minnesota or even in Canada, and these missing persons reports some have been blamed on possible Wendigos. So I thought that was really interesting too, especially since it does get really cold up in Minnesota. So it's the perfect area for Wendigos, honestly. That was all that I was able to find. Besides, on YouTube, if you can listen to some really creepy home-written stories about encounters with Wendigos. I'm not sure exactly how real some of them are. Some of them seem to be just like, creative writing.
Which is still fun.
It's still fun, and they're still really interesting, and a lot of them give you some more history on Wendigos than I was able to. But yeah, that was all I had for the Wendigos.
I wish I could remember the name of that Reddit story, but it was so long ago, but it was so good. And I think I had to like stop reading it because it was freaking me out too much.
I just remembered something. Also, this is really random, but in Stoughton, Wisconsin, there is a restaurant and it's called Wendigo. And the burgers are called like the Cannibal Burger or things like that. And I feel like it might be a bad idea just because they are considered evil spirits that can possess people. But I kind of want to go.
Yeah, let's just go.
That's really close, so we should go.
But I'm really glad you chose Wendigos because I didn't know any of that. I just knew that they were terrifying. And I was like, I didn't even see Wendigo on the list, actually. But what were you originally going to do? Because I originally was going to do the Dark Watchers in California, which are, they're basically shadow people that appear, they're in Native American folklore of the region, and they are sometimes wearing like hats and capes, but I couldn't find enough on that to make it worth talking about for, 30 minutes or so.
I was looking for the people who had unexplainably died after seeing the Wendigo between the 1800s and 1920s. And I got distracted scrolling through missing person files for Minnesota, and I came across something that was really interesting, and I don't know if I want to talk about it while we're recording, because it might be something for a different episode. So if we want to stop recording, I would really like to tell you about it.
Okay, so yeah, I think that was all we had for this week. That was really fun. I liked the surprise element where we had no idea what the other person was doing, and hey, we didn't end up doing the same thing.
I'm really impressed that we didn't do the same thing. I really loved the surprise aspect of it as well, because I feel like, I don't know, we were both able to really go in depth on what we were researching.
Yeah, and I think because really we both chose something that we were
really interested in.
Yeah, that we were like, we just went farther with it.
Yeah.
I had a lot more, but it was just like I would have been talking for hours, and like this is already the longest podcast we've recorded, so.
I had a lot more too, but I started to kind of paraphrase because a lot of it was kind of repetitive, I realized. But yeah.
Well, that was
Unexplainable entities.
Unexplainable entities, yes. And thank you guys for listening. We still, we dropped off a lot of listeners for episode 2, but I think that's kind of just how it goes. But still, like, I think we're up to 30 for the last episode, and that's just crazy. And thank you to everyone who is new to listening or continuing to listen. We really appreciate it. And if you have any topics you'd like to hear, let us know. We have our email is oddifypodcast@gmail.com. And we also are on Facebook and Instagram. You can find all the links below. Well, that's it then. Thank you guys for listening, and keep it odd.